So at this point, I'm gonna assume most of you have seen Iron Fist. Or you saw the reviews of it saying it's the worst thing of all time, ever made, ever, and have just avoided it like the plague and haven't watched it yet. Well, regardless of that, I'm gonna assume you're totally down with spoilers, because this is gonna be a full-on spoiler review of Iron Fist Season 1. If you haven't seen the show, look out for spoilers. I'm gonna be spoiling everything for you. I guess, go watch it, but like I said, if you already clicked the video, saw the title and the thumbnail, I'm pretty sure you're probably fine with spoilers. But in this day and age, you have to always say spoilers. That's just how it is. So there you go. There's your spoiler warning. Don't blame me in the comments down below. You've been warned. Cue the intro. What's going on, guys? Seven Shoguns here, back with another video. I know it's been a minute, it's been a while, but we're back with the review of Iron Fist Season 1. I'm going to be talking about all 13 episodes, and like I said, it's going to be very spoiler heavy. Funny enough, I actually recorded a review of episodes 1 through 6 that was a non-spoiler review, but I don't think I'm going to upload it because it was kind of ranty. It was kind of me talking about the first 6 episodes, and I only saw those first 6 at the time. And it was kind of a rant about the show isn't as bad as everyone says it is. All these reviews out here are just insane. They're not watching the same show that I was. And I just wanted to get my point across about that. But upon rewatching it, yeah, it's actually not that great of a review. I'm not going to post it. Unless you guys want me to. If you guys ask me to post it, I will. All 2 of you. But, hey, you never know. But Iron Fist is here, the long-awaited final series from the Netflix, this sort of Netflix deal that they've been doing, leading up to the Defenders. And honestly, when they first announced all 4, Daredevil, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, Iron Fist was the one that I was most excited about, because that seemed to be the one that was in my wheelhouse the most. Kung fu action show about a guy who has a glowing iron power fist and punches things, and it's gonna be awesome. Tons of flips and effects, really freaking cool. And I think a lot of ways Daredevil Season 1 actually fed that need for me. A lot of that show had a lot of flips and action scenes, but after seeing Daredevil Season 1 and seeing how great that could be, it got me really excited for seeing what Iron Fist could be. You now take a guy like Daredevil, who's basically a ninja, but give him glowing Iron Fist powers. That sounds amazing! Well, after watching the entire series, episodes 1 through 13, and after having a few weeks to sit on it, because I've seen it, I saw it when it first came out. I had time to watch other people's reviews, not just the early critics' reviews that were actually garbage. Don't watch those, or don't read those. But watching people's reviews that actually sat down and watched the entire series. I watched it myself. I had time to kind of marinate and think on it. Iron Fist is not exactly what I really wanted it to be. And I think most people are going to find it's not what they want it to be at all. Iron Fist is not a terrible show. It's not a show that I think deserves a 17% or whatever it has in Rotten Tomatoes. And I know Rotten Tomatoes is not a actual grade of the movie. It's an aggregate of other people's scores of the movie. If it's either bad or good, and that's the Rotten Tomatoes score. I understand how Rotten Tomatoes works, but I think the idea is that when you see a 17% or whatever, I think at one point it was 0%, whatever. You see that, you see a little smashed green splat next to it saying it's rotten, it's bad. If you're someone who's a mainstream or doesn't understand that, most people don't apparently, based off the Batman vs Superman reviews and the Suicide Squad reviews, if you see that kind of stuff and you're gonna look at it and say, oh, this movie must be pretty bad, or I guess the show must be pretty bad, not movie. And the thing is, I think that paints a inaccurate picture of what the show is. That's like Fantastic Four levels of bad, the new one, the Fant Four Stick movie, or Green Lantern levels of bad, right? This show is not that bad. A lot of ways, I think about it, totally different type of experience, but I consider it to the Thor movies of the MCU, right? Where Thor 1 is actually a pretty solid movie. Thor 2 is not. Thor 2 is kind of boring, but it's not terrible. It's just okay. Like, it's just like, this is an okay movie I can play and not pay attention to. You know, I can like vacuum while I'm watching it or something like that, you know? One of those kind of movies. But when you compare it to the rest of the MCU, which has a lot of like really solid films like Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy, The Avengers, when you compare Thor 2 to that kind of stuff, it looks worse. There was a movie I think that came out like years ago called The Duff, which is like basically this concept when it comes to girls where you have a hot girl and then you have the like the not hot girl. She's okay, you know, she's actually pretty attractive, but when compared to the hot girl, she looks worse. So she's like the Duff. She's used to make the hot girl look hotter. You know what I mean? It's that kind of scenario, but like backwards, right? Where the Thor movies are the Duff of the MCU, basically. And I feel like Iron Fist is like that for the Netflix shows, where Iron Fist undoubtedly is probably the worst of the 4 shows. And if you count Daredevil season 1 and 2 together, then that's, you know, then there's 4 of them, right? Definitely the worst one. But when you use a word like the worst, it connotates it's just absolute garbage. When it's like, it's not garbage. It's just okay. Like, it's not a great show. It's just not as good as the Daredevil season 1 or 2. And I would argue, depending on your taste, it's not as good as Luke Cage or Jessica Jones. The thing about Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, well, yeah, those two shows specifically, a lot of people don't like those shows compared to Daredevil, because Daredevil is a gritty crime drama action show. It's very much a superhero show. Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, those shows, I like to think of them as social commentaries. They're commentating on certain aspects of the human condition, right, of life. Luke Cage is about being black in Harlem specifically, but just kind of being black in America. And then Jessica Jones is is about being a woman, being a superhero who's a woman, and like what that effect has on her, and also to a character like the villain Kilgrave, who can control minds. What kind of things does he make her do, and how does that affect her as being a hero? And like, they're definitely social commentaries. They're not these sprawling action shows like Daredevil is. But so some people don't like them. I've seen people who don't like Jessica Jones at all. You know, I tend to like them, and I think because you can't go in expecting them to be the same. Even though I feel like the first reaction is to say, "Oh, this is going to be like Daredevil." It's not like Daredevil at all. When you throw an Iron Fist to that mix, Iron Fist out of those 3, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist, is the most that should be like Daredevil. Is going back to that kind of just comic book fun, you know, show that it should be. The problem is Iron Fist doesn't really know what it wants to be. And that's the thing. You could argue all day long about why Jessica Jones and Luke Cage is not as good as Daredevil, but the one thing you have to admit is at least they have a very central focus, right? They know what they're trying to be, and they have a very clear vision of what that is. That they may fail, like for example, Luke Cage season 1, the first half I think is very clear, very focused on what it's trying to be. The second half of that starts to deviate from that. I think when you start bringing in Diamondback and stuff like that, the show starts to fall off and starts becoming kind of boring because the villain isn't anywhere near as compelling as Cottonmouth was. I feel like that with Iron Fist, but throughout the entire show, where there are pockets where the show understands what it's trying to be, like episode 6, where he is running around trying to do this trial from Madame Gao, and you see him sort of like a video game, fighting these different enemies and trying to getting through each one. That was a very concise episode. Or the whole arc with Bakudo and the like second hand, the right hand, I don't know, left hand, I don't know, the other hand. And that whole mystery of like, well, who are these guys? Are they part of the hand? They're definitely part of the hand. They're way too shady. Is Colleen part of the hand? She is part of the hand. Oh my God. Like that whole sequence of events was actually really solidly put together. And again, I think that's where the show has a very clear focus. I saw a comment from one of the reviews I watched, I don't remember, that they were saying basically this show would have benefited heavily if it was just 6 episodes. And I totally agree with that, where I feel like the amount of story they actually wrote was about 6 episodes worth, or, you know, about maybe like, I don't know, 8 episodes worth. But because of the Netflix model, they had to extend it out to 13 episodes. And I think that really hurt the show. I don't have the exact like information here in front of me, but I remember back when the show was first being worked on and being announced, and I was eagerly looking forward to it as a Marvel fan. I remember there was a lot of confusion as far as, well, when is the show going to happen? Because usually around the time when they would have released information as far as who's going to be show running it, who's going to be cast, who's going to, when's it going to come out, like that kind of stuff, didn't happen for a minute. And there were so many rumors about, oh, maybe they canceled it. They're going to go on with just the Punisher instead and just do a Punisher show and cancel Iron Fist entirely. They're going to make a movie, make a 2-hour movie about it, not the actual show. And those are all, just BS rumors. But that stuff came about because the timeline for this show, I think, was kind of rushed. I think they didn't have the time they really wanted to, but because of the Netflix contracts or whatever, they had to meet a certain date, 2017, right? So they end up getting, Finn Jones and Scott Buck and all these guys sort of the last minute to make this show, and they didn't have as much time as they would have on, say, Daredevil Season 1 or Jessica Jones Season 1. That show has been in the making for a long time. Back when they were trying to make it they're trying to make Luci's show, I think on NBC, as just Alias Investigations. They're just gonna call it that. But that didn't work out, and they had it in the can for a while. Regardless, I think this show would have benefited from either more time to actually expound on the characters and perfect the writing style of what was going to happen, and also write more content for the episodes, make them more interesting and compelling, or B, lowering the episode count, making it way shorter. 6 episodes would have been perfect, I think. I think the amount of story you have could be crammed down to be a lot shorter. There's just so much useless information that, in the grand scheme of things, it's like, what was the point, In the review that I made, that I'm probably not going to publish, I talked about how those first 6 episodes, everyone hated on them because they were very boring. But for me, I have different kind of tastes, right? Like, I can watch an action show, but I also can watch a very quiet drama. I don't necessarily put myself in a box. I can only watch this or that. So I didn't mind the legality boardroom stuff because I thought it was going to lead up to something, right? I figured you have this character, Harold, who's hiding out. He's got a plan. He has to have some kind of crazy plan. He's too maniacal and evil to just have nothing, right? He has to be up to something. And then as the show goes on, Ward kills him. I was like, oh man, okay, he's dead. But then he comes back and I'm like, okay, now he came back. He's definitely going to have some kind of revenge or something. But it didn't really go anywhere. I felt like that character was way too cartoony. He was way too just crazy and weird for no purpose. Like, I figured he was going to have some kind of grand plan for Danny. But for the most part, he just was like, oh, hey, Danny, yeah, I'm being controlled by the Hand. You should go kill them. And that's it. Like, that's the extent that he's involved with Danny's plan to take out the Hand. I felt like he should have been pulling the strings more. It just felt weird that they were setting up this character, all these characters, the entire Meacham family, felt like they were setting up for something, and they just didn't. It just didn't lead to anything. And that seems like a real shame. I feel like that could have been better if they actually, again, it just felt more focused. If they actually had a clear idea of what these characters were going to be. I felt like they were just kind of biding time, right? They only had so much of the Kunlun Iron Fist stuff to work with that they were like, well, we have to fill in these other, like, five episodes of content. You know what I mean? So they just added all these scenes to talking about, oh, well, this drug isn't going to work. Or, oh, well, this scene of this. Or Danny made a fool of himself here, and I'm upset, and I got to drink coffee. Or I have this whole pill addiction, or whatever. And it just wasn't as fascinating. And again, back to my point in the beginning, back when I thought about Iron Fist and what it could be, I imagined a really cool, fun, action-y romp, and that's not what I got. Well, I say I get that at some points. Like, there's parts when he fights the Drunken Master. That was really fun. That was a really fun fight. Came out of nowhere, but it was really cool, and that was kind of the energy that I really wanted. But I wanted that throughout the entire thing. So speaking of energy, let's talk about Danny Rand, the character, Finn Jones, and all that stuff. I'm not going to get into the race issue. I have a lot of thoughts about that, and I think the problem with it doesn't stem with the race of the character. It stems with the writing of the show, the writing of the character, the story. And I think hating on Finn Jones being white makes no sense because you could replace him with someone who's Hispanic. You could replace him with someone who's black. You could make him Asian. But the whole point of the story is that Danny Rand is an outsider. He's not from Kunlun. So if you make him Asian, it's not like all of a sudden, oh, now it makes sense. No, it doesn't. He's still an outsider who came to someone else's place and took their, tradition and power. That's the whole idea. So making him Asian doesn't explain it away. Like, oh, now he fits in. He shouldn't fit in. That's the whole point. He's not supposed to fit in. That's what the character is actually written. And that's the problem with the writing. If you don't like that aspect of it, someone who's an outsider coming into a place and learning about their culture and then kind of using, becoming the best of them, using their powers and running away with it, then that's the problem with the writing itself, not the problem with casting Finn Jones. So that's something I don't feel is an issue, but that's where I'll end it with that. The problem I do have with Finn Jones, though, is in the beginning of the show, I felt like, again, it was very clear what he was supposed to be. He was a character who has been away for 10 or 15 years. He's very naive, and he's very happy-go-lucky, right? But underneath all of that sort of bravado, underneath all that kind of cockiness, there is this anger within him. He's salty about the fact that he's been trapped in this monastery for 15 years and he has to endure essentially torture to become the Iron Fist. He doesn't like that about him. That's the whole reason that he leaves Kowloon in the first place. He leaves it because he's like, you know what, this place is cool. It's heaven, so to speak, but I'm happy that I had the ability to come home. And the first chance he took, he just left. He got the Iron Fist, he had this power, and he just left, So that was interesting to me because you have someone like Daredevil, Matt Murdock, who definitely has an anger boiling inside of him, but he's fighting that off for religious reasons. He feels like as a Catholic, he has to be a certain way, he has to be a good person, but he has this devil in him. That's the Daredevil. And sort of his arc on season 2 is sort of coping with that. And at the end, he just decides, screw it being a lawyer. I'm just going to be Daredevil. I'm just going to be a superhero who punches people in the face because it feels good to do so, right? I feel like you have that with Iron Fist, but the difference is instead of being a brooding kind of guy all the time anyway, he has that sort of naivety. And so it's kind of fascinating the dynamic of seeing him going from happy-go-lucky, hey, I'm Danny Rand, to being like, I will actually murder you with this glowing iron fist, right? That part was cool. The problem was that only was like for the first couple episodes. You know what I mean? And then after episode 6, I think is where it starts to dip. He starts to become, instead of being naive and sort of carefree, he becomes very whiny and very annoying. And just stupid, really. He's basically this brute force warrior who's, I trained in Kowloon to be the Iron Fist. All I know is being a warrior and fighting someone. And it's like, bro, your plans make no sense. In fact, you don't even have plans. Like, there's so many points in the show where Claire or Colleen is like, this makes no sense. You have no plan. You can't just run in there and fight people. It's not how it works. He's like, no, I'm the Iron Fist. I have to destroy the hand. Let's go. And he just goes into it. And it's like, this is actually dumb. Like, you went from someone that, like, okay, I can kind of root for you because you kind of have this, like, Captain America thing going on where you're a man who's like, out of time, and you kind of are all about truth and justice and being a good person. You went from that to just being a dumb, I punch things with a glowing fist. I lift things up and put them down. You know what I mean? Like, this very brute force, just dumb fighter. And that wasn't cool for me. I felt like the writing for the character itself, they didn't know how to approach him. And he kind of felt inconsistent throughout the show. And that's sort of my problem with Danny Rand. It isn't so much Finn Jones. I think Finn Jones is a great actor. I'm sure he's a nice guy in real life. And again, we see him in Game of Thrones. I mean, I think he can act. I think the problem is just the writing definitely would have benefited from just having a few more drafts. It would have benefited from just having more time to figure out who this character is supposed to be. and that's my biggest problem. However, to counter that, the best character, the one that has the most writing, I think, that's really well done, is definitely Colleen Wing. I think most reviews will totally say this as well. Colleen's the best character, hands down. Ironically, though, she has, compared to like Danny, has way less screen time. Obviously, he's the main character, but I think that helps because she's not on screen as much. They have less time to basically mess it up. You know, she can be more concise and more clear and more focused, and I think that helps a lot. Colleen Wing is awesome. She's really cool, and I'm really happy she's gonna be in the Defenders show, and I hope she's a big part of it because she's a really compelling character. You know, she was cool before the whole hand twist, but then you add that on top of it, where she's also part of the hand, and she's trained her whole life to be a part of the hand, much like Danny was trained his whole life to be the Iron Fist. That was a really cool dynamic where it's like, you know, well, what do? Do you go with what your family says, or do you go with love? It's sort of like the whole Romeo and Juliet thing, right? Do you go with the family war you've always had, or do you go with who you love? And I think that was really well done and really well executed. Claire was okay. You know, I think we've kind of seen this before. I feel like it's sort of like a given, like, oh, she has to be in all four. And again, it didn't feel like they really figured out how to utilize her properly. She just was there because she just obligated to be there. And it was cool to have her, but there are some parts that didn't make a lot of sense, right? Like, they gave her these, like, Wolverine claws that she was going to use to punch people with. And there's one scene where the hand basically invade Colin's dojo to try and get back Madame Gao. And so Danny's fighting the hand off, which, by the way, aren't ninja. The hand are, like, SWAT agents with guns. When did that happen? I thought the hand was supposed to be a clan of ninja. You know what I mean? I guess there's different factions of the hand. So like the Japanese hand is ninjas, but Madame Gao, because she's not Japanese, she's actually I believe she's Chinese. She's Mandarin. Her hand is like trained soldiers, and then Bakudo's hand, the American faction of the hand, they're just a mixed bag of everyone, you know. I guess there's a hand of different countries, and that's how it works. Anyway, regardless, so you know, they basically come in to take her back, and then Claire starts fighting the hand with these claws. And I'm like, Claire, you can't fight. Like, I get that Colleen was training you for a split second, but it's like, this is the hand. They are trained warriors, supposedly. You can't just fight them and then win. I don't know, that made no sense to me at all. I feel like, again, the way they were using her made no sense. There are parts where I'm like, I'm kind of happy she's there. She's, again, the nurse that heals all of them. So the parts where Danny was sick, the parts where Colleen had that poison in her, made sense she was there. It was cool that she couldn't fix it because, again, she's not like a super nurse. She's just a nurse. So the fact that Danny had to use his powers to heal her was kind of cool. But I just felt like, again, if they had more time to figure out what she was supposed to be actually doing, it would have been a lot better. I also liked the fact that they actually brought in Davos to this show. Davos, obviously if you've seen the show, you know who this is. Actually, I guess not, because they don't really tease it up. So I guess this is kind of a spoiler for what could happen in season 2, if they even do season 2, because this show is not doing so hot from what I hear. Davos is basically the counterpart to the Iron Fist. He ends up becoming the Steel Serpent, which is basically Iron Fist, but instead of green, he wears purple. I mean, it's like the same thing. He has the same kind of powers. I don't know enough about the Iron Fist comic books to tell you how he gets his like Iron Fist powers. I don't know. I just know that he has similar powers to Danny Rand. And they're like they're like mortal enemies. So I knew who that was before I watched the show. So it was really cool the fact that they introduced Davos, and they took this sort of like Baron Mordo approach where he's his friend, but then ultimately becomes his greatest enemy by the end. And they don't do too much with it. They have a big fight scene towards like the last couple episodes, but he doesn't become Steel Serpent or anything in this season. I'm sure they're teeing it up for next season, which again they might not even make because this show wasn't that well received, but who knows? It might happen. I'm really hoping they're gonna do a Danny Rand Luke Cage crossover show and just call it Heroes for Hire. I think that'll be great because I think Luke Cage was pretty well received too, but that also had some problems. So again, I'm not sure if I want to see Luke Cage season 2, Iron Fist season 2. I think I'd rather just see them together as Heroes for Hire. I think that would be really cool. But that's neither here nor there. That's for like a later time. But Davos was a cool character, and I do like the way he was introduced. I thought he was used just the right amount, and the way he's set up for season 2 or season whatever they're gonna do does get me excited to see a possible Steel Serpent character coming about. But yeah, overall with the show, like I said, I think it's just okay. This show is not a 2 out of 10. You know what I mean? It's definitely like maybe like a 6, which, you know, on the American grading system at school, a 60% is a D, which is like bad. So I mean, you know, 60% is not good in people's minds. So maybe that still means it's bad. Whatever. It's just it's not absolute garbage. That's my whole point. And maybe it doesn't matter. Being absolute garbage and being a D is still considered bad to people. So it's like, okay, well, it's still bad. So who cares? Who cares how bad it is? It's just bad. Fine. I definitely agree with you on that point. But I just don't think the show deserves the hate that it's getting, especially because I think a lot of it is racially induced, and it's not about the show itself. It's not about the actual quality of the show. It's about the surface level. Okay, well, I just see this, so this is why it's bad. And it's like, okay, but actually watch it. Don't just say it's bad because of what you see on the surface. Actually watch the show. See how you feel about it at that point. That's just my 2 cents on it. That's how I feel about all of that. Those are my thoughts on Iron Fist Season 1. But this is a YouTube video with comments, so use those comments and let me know, how do you feel about Iron Fist Season 1? First of all, have you seen the show? Don't just type, oh, well, IGN told me it was bad, or Polygon said this, or so-and-so said this. It's like, okay, fine, but what do you think about it? Let me know in the comments down below, how do you feel about Iron Fist Season 1? Have you seen it? And then, what do you think about it? Okay, it's not as good as Daredevil, Luke Cage, or Jessica Jones, but why? Right? Like, tell me why. Give me reasons, specific reasons why. This is a spoiler review, so spoilers abound. Whatever, I don't care. If you cry about spoilers, you learn to read. It's in the title. It's in the title of the video. It's in the thumbnail probably, and I've said it so many times. Which you can't read you can't read my words because I'm talking to you. So I guess learn to hear, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, I'd love to debate with you in the comments down below. Let's hopefully keep it somewhat civil. If you want to see more videos like this, and you like this video in general, leave a like and subscribe. I'm going to be doing more reviews. I'm actually going to be catching up on a bunch of reviews for Power Rangers. Ghost in the Shell comes out tomorrow. Beauty and the Beast, King Kong. I'm going to be doing videos for all of those. Literally, I'm going to be binging those and just kind of cranking them out because I've been so behind. Reason being is because I actually been playing Zelda. I've been playing Legend of Zelda so much. I just haven't been getting work done. And that is maybe a testament to why the game is really good, because I've just poured hours of my life into it, and there's that. But okay, until next video, I will see you guys next time. Bye.